The clock on the microwave, a smug green digital glow against the black granite, blinked 2:30 a.m. Simone hadn't slept, not truly, in weeks. Her husband hadn't been home, and the silence from his phone had been louder than any confession. This late-night vigil wasn't a search for proof. It was the silent, cold anticipation of the inevitable, a ritual she now embraced. For months, she had meticulously logged every hour of his life in her memory. The time of his arrival, the telltale scent that clung to his expensive fabrics. It wasn't the familiar, comforting aroma of sandalwood and vetiver she used to buy him from the local boutique, the one that smelled like promise and quiet evenings. No, this was the heavy, cloying scent of success mixed with strange skin and cheap desire. A scent that seemed to promise more than it could ever deliver, much like the man himself. Tonight, he didn't even try for the pretense of quiet. The silence of the high-rise condo, their 1,400 square foot unit bought with her savings and his debt, was shattered. Devin burst into the foyer, letting out a triumphant, alcohol-fueled sigh that sounded like a vault door slamming shut, locking her inside with his transgression. He looked impeccable, as always, after one of his business dinners that actually led him into the practiced, receptive arms of Tiffany Hayes. His crisp, expensive shirt, a shade of deep sapphire blue that made his eyes sparkle, was obviously new. A purchase he had never mentioned to her. The intrusive odor of a flashy, aggressive cologne, one Simone knew had been chosen to announce his arrival, and the top two buttons casually undone, as if to prove to the world and to her how little he cared about domestic rules or loyalties. He was swollen with self-satisfaction, arrogant to the core. That smugness, a visible sheen on his skin, made Simone's stomach clench. Not with rage, nor even with the old familiar throb of pain. It was just sheer physical disgust, a bitter taste of ashes in her mouth. How? She wondered, staring at the polished veneer of his tailored suit. Had she ever confused this hollow man with the ambitious, if naive, young man she'd married? This Devin was a caricature, a polished salesman who regarded himself as his best, most expensive product. His eyes slightly cloudy from the excess of scotch, but alight with a glowing, predatory sense of triumph, screamed only one thing. He was the winner. Get Lost Now. A dial tone, a long, drawn-out dial tone that sounded like the final chord of his ruined life. It wasn't just the end of his job. It was the abrupt end of everything he knew, everything he was proud of, everything he had built his future on. His entire foundation, built on lies and arrogance, was collapsing. He slumped onto the sofa, gasping for breath, the room spinning around him. He had lost. He had lost everything. His golden ticket, his status, his reputation, his very identity, and all because of Simone, his quiet, obedient, mortgage-laden wife. He stared at his expensive phone as if it were the death sentence she had delivered without a single word. At that precise, devastating moment, as if by some devilish choreographed plan, a notification popped up on his phone, a brief alert that served as the final brutal nail in his coffin. It was from the bank's legal division. Dear co-borrower Devin Vance, you are hereby notified of the receipt of an application from the second co-borrower, Simone P., RHS, regarding the restructuring of the mortgage loan and the division of marital assets. Please report to the bank branch to review the details of the claim and discuss the next steps for executing this application and the consequences of your inaction. We expect your visit within 3 business days. Otherwise, the case will be handed over to the court for forced division, prioritizing the financially stable co-bearer. She hadn't just torpedoed the deal. She had hit him at his most vulnerable point. His finances, his home, his illusory sense of security. Asset division. She was taking her legally entitled 50%, plus potentially more, due to his documented fraud, leaving him with mounting debt and emptied accounts. His quiet, obedient wife, the one he dismissed as merely an accountant, was stripping him of everything he considered his property, doing it with the cold, unfeeling precision of a master strategist. This wasn't just a separation. It was a complete, methodical annihilation executed with the terrifying efficiency of an engineer who had calculated every weak point in the structure. Devin frantically grabbed his phone and called Tiffany. She was the best woman in the world, the trophy he had humiliated Simone over. She was his comfort, his youthful escape, young, beautiful, working at a big advertising agency. She valued him for his success, his expensive gifts, and his aggressive generosity. Now he needed her support, her sympathy, her consoling touch to somehow restore his broken, collapsing world. He imagined her embracing him, her soft voice telling him everything would be fine, that she believed in his talent. How utterly wrong he was. "Hello, Tiffany." His voice trembled visibly. He struggled desperately to maintain an appearance of self-respect, trying to sound confident, but the desperate tremor in his vocal cords betrayed his utter devastation. "Oh, Dev. Hey, why so early?" Her voice was sleepy, but content, almost bored, as if he had woken her after a very pleasant night that she wished was still going. He imagined her lying in her expensive designer bed, waiting for him. But that waiting had nothing to do with him now. "Tiffany, I need to talk to you. This is very serious. I just got fired and the asset division has officially begun. My wife, she's absolutely destroying me. Understand, she set it all up. She's a traitor, a vengeful mouse. Fired!" The echo of his voice was hollow in the receiver, followed by a telling pause. A pause that contained the complete calculation of his new, vastly diminished worth. The pause was long, uncomfortable, and then a tone of something very similar to slight annoyance, perhaps even disgust, crept into her voice. "What do you mean fired? How? You were just about to close the deal of the century. I just told you yesterday how great you are, how successful. You said you'd be one of the richest brokers in this city tomorrow. What were you telling me about a new Porsche?" "Yeah, but I was set up. My wife, she ruined everything. She destroyed me. She's a plain bitter mouse. You know what she was like. She was just jealous. Tiffany, I need you with me now. I'm coming over. We'll talk. I'll explain everything. I need a place to stay until I find a new job. You know I bounce back quickly. I'm talented. I'm a sales genius. I just need a small break. A month maybe, and everything will be fine. I swear." His voice now sounded pleading, shattered, desperate. "Stay at my place? Devin, you know my apartment isn't huge. And honestly, this is kind of ridiculous. You yourself said you were a business shark, untouchable. And now some wife set you up?
That sounds like a weak excuse. You probably screwed up the documentation yourself, didn't you? What does all this sudden legal trouble have to do with me and my apartment? Her voice grew sharper, impatient, devoid of any past affection. I don't need my sophisticated neighbors seeing me with someone who's fleeing from court and a soon-to-be ex-wife. This is all so petty, so low-stakes drama. You remember, I always said I value stability, and right now, Devin, you seem to have absolutely none. You're a liability. Tiffany, but I bought you so many things. Remember that watch? The one I got you in Paris? I paid for your luxury trip to the Caribbean. We had a future. You said you loved me. He pleaded for her to save him, clinging to the false currency of their past exchanges. Look, Devin, let's be honest, shall we? Her voice was hard, stripped of yesterday's flirtation and every hint of sympathy. He heard her adjusting her pillow, a clear, unmistakable sign she was tired of the entire messy conversation.